During those times, the church in India was given spiritual nurture and leadership by the ecclesiastical heads visited here from Babylon.
The arrival of Pantinus from Alexandria in the year AD 189 enhanced the status and prestige of Christians in the society. This reality is historically testified by the events that followed. The then Kerala sovereign Veera Raghava conferred on Rt.Rev.Dr, who was the chief among the Kerala Christians then, the title Chairman Lokaperinchetti and 18 other privileges. From the coronation of Emperor Constantine in the year AD 312, Christianity became the official free religion in the Roman Empire. The impacts of the same were felt worldwide. The council at Nicaea in the year AD 325 formed and coined the creed for the universal church, affirming the faith in the Holy Trinity. The records show that a bishop named John from India also attended the Nicene Council. Religious persecutions broke out in Persia in the 4th century. A group of 400 under the leadership of Thomas of Cana, who was a prominent tradesman and chieftain, migrated to Cranganore in AD 345 to protect and safeguard their holy faith. Bishop Yosef from Uraha and his deacons also accompanied them to cater to their spiritual needs, and that became a blessing to Malankara in turn. The local people held this group, who practiced the profession of the Vaishya clan, in high esteem. People from this community never entered into matrimonial alliance with other ethnic groups. The Persian cross and the writings in the ancient language of Pali, seen in the Kottayam Valyapalli, are the visible proofs of the strong relationship Malankara had with Persia. There was a belief among the locals that the oil offered in the temples will be sanctified by the touch of the Christians. The local kings also held the Christians in high esteem.
By AD 425, Nestor became the Patriarch of Constantinople. He held the divinity and the humanity of Jesus Christ separately. The impact of this faith was seen in Malankara also. The Chaldean Church, which exists in Thrissur and its neighborhood, continues to hold on to this faith tradition.
Our church is known as Chaldean Syrian Church locally, or Church of the East. We are also known as Assyrian Church because we are under the Patriarch of the Assyrian Church, but our headquarters is Iraq, Iran area. Our church is a part of the whole Syrian Christian community in India. But in Thrissur, this is the oldest church, because after the attack of Tipu Sultan, the Shaktan Tamburan Maharaja of Cochin brought Christian families, 52 Christian families to Thrissur, and then later another king built a church for us. This is the faithful remnant of the pre-Portuguese Syrian Christianity in India.
The Malankara Church used to receive the Nestorian bishops and Syrian bishops without hesitations. By the middle of the 7th century, Islam originated in West Asia. When the Muslims conquered and established their dominion in Cranganore, the Christians had to retreat to Angamali. As the church and the town were constructed at Angamali, that became a stronghold of ancient Christianity. The Kerala Christians had good relationship with the Hindu kings and local chieftains. Kaladi, the birthplace of Shankaracharya, the protagonist of Advaita philosophy, is close to Malayatur, a famous Christian pilgrim center in Kerala.
The second migration of Persian Christians to Malankara was in the year 825. This large community of Christians, under the leadership of Marwan Sabarisho, including Bishops Mar Sapro and Mar Proth, came to Kollam, which was a great commercial center at that time. Ayyanadigal, the then king of Venad, gave this bronze tablets to those Christians. These bronze edicts are known as Tharishapalli edicts. These tablets contain the special privileges granted to the Christian church at Tharishapalli. Through this edict, the Christians were given 72 privileges. The privileges included the right to possess slaves, Arapura, Padipura, and so on. The beginning of the Kollavarsham is ascribed to this migration of the Persians to Kollam. The kings and local chieftains liked the Christians because of their interest in serving the kingdom. They were very good at martial arts and the like. The prestige and power of the Nazarenes were increasing in Malankara. Kings began to honor them with special titles like Mapila, Tarakan, Panikar, and so on. By the 10th century, a Christian dynasty named Villiarvatam was founded basing at Dampur. The Villiarvatam kings, wearing pink turbans and long staff mounted on elephants, was a joy to the eye. In due course of time, this dynasty came to its end.
Because of the peculiar political situations of the time, the land route Europe had with the Malabar coast was blocked. This affected trade in spices. In this situation, the valiant efforts to discover a new sea route to Malabar coast from the west became successful under the leadership of sailor and trader Vasco da Gama. The great valiant sailor Vasco da Gama reached at Kapad near Calicut in 1498 after a historic sea voyage of 317 days. Along with Vasco da Gama, the Roman Catholic faith and practices also came to Malankara. The Portuguese tried to enforce Roman Catholic faith and practices in Malankara, forgetting the historic fact that the church in Malankara was a well-founded Episcopal church. Opposition to the Roman Catholic practices was seen in different parts of the world. From 1529, the word Protestant was used to qualify the reformers in Christianity. With the advent of the Portuguese, there was rapid progress in agriculture sector also. The Portuguese introduced cashew, pineapple, tobacco, and many other agricultural crops in Kerala. They took initiative for the construction of churches and fortresses. The Portuguese, who had made a political empire by this time, made Goa their capital. They made great influence and impact in every walk of life within half a century. The Portuguese were irritating and offending the Malankara bishops in spite of their credentials from the Patriarch of Antioch.
By the year 1542, Francis Xavier, the great missionary, arrived in Goa with the patronage of the Portuguese Empire. The Portuguese in India gave him great support. He was a zealous, enthusiastic missionary that he could rightly be called the second apostle of India. Reverend Robert D. Nobili, who arrived at Madurai in 1605, also did worthy mission activity. He took up the native practices of Punul, Kuduma, Pottu, and so on, and thereby initiated the process of Indianization and inculturation to evangelization. In spite of the manifold missionary activities, the Portuguese in India were very much upset about the intimate relationship the Syrians had with the Middle Eastern Christian communities. During those times, the concept of common cemeteries sprang up among the Malankara Christians, and this encouraged the solidarity between the members of the church. When Alexis de Menezes assumed charge as the Archbishop of Goa, the gulf between the Roman Catholic Church and the Syrians widened. Archdeacon Georgis, who was the leader of the Syrian Christians in Malankara, also did whatever he could to defend the advances of Archbishop Menezes.
As the archdeacon was not submissive, the impatient Archbishop Menezes came in person to Malankara in 1599. Influencing the king of Kochi on the pretext of solving the problems, he convened a synod at Diamper. The archdeacon also was compelled to attend it. 133 clergy, 20 deacons, and 660 lay representatives attended the week-long synod. The synod was only a venue to enforce the unilateral decisions of the archbishop. Even the Syrian taxa had to be modified as per the Roman Catholic faith and practices. Many valuable historical documents of the Malankara Church were put to fire. Archdeacon Thomas, who assumed the position by that time, was determined to keep alive the flame of Eastern Syrian tradition. He sought help from different patriarchs. Responding to his request, the bishop sent from Babylon, Mar Ahatalla, was imprisoned and persecuted by the Portuguese. This was something beyond the endurance of the Malankara people. About 25,000 people under the leadership of Archdeacon Thomas marched to Kochi, where Mar Ahatalla was kept in custody, subsequently to be exiled to Goa. The Portuguese prepared themselves to face the marching crowd with cannons and bullets. Archdeacon and the group, sensing the futility of fighting against the armed Portuguese, withdrew to the old church compound at Mattancherry. It was here they took a vow that they and the generations to come will have nothing to do with the papacy. The oath of the Coonan Cross on the 3rd of Makaram 1653 became historic in this respect. Holding the ropes to all directions, tied to the stone-built cross, they made this historic oath. By this oath, the Malankara Syrian Christians were liberated from the Roman yoke, which had a duration of 50 years.
Those who made the declaration of independence were known as Puthan Kutugar. They gathered at the church at Alangat, and Thomas the Archdeacon was consecrated as Metropolitan by 12 clergy of the church. As the consecration was done without the laying of hands of a bishop, it was seen imperfect. This imperfection was rectified when the first Thoma received the laying of hands from Mar Gregorius of Jerusalem in the same year. Within a short time, the Dutch defeated the Portuguese and established their dominion in the Malabar region, and this became favorable for the Syrians. The valiant leaders of the church who led her during those turbulent times have their final resting places near the ancient churches where history itself is recorded. The first Mar Thoma, who was consecrated in the year 1653, to the ninth Mar Thoma, who passed away in 1817, had their consecration from the patriarchs or by their predecessors. Katumangatu Mar Kurilos was consecrated in 1772. This consecration was not acceptable to Mar Dionysius, who was the then Malankara metropolitan. Mar Kurilos had to retreat to Thoriur near Trichur, a province in British Malabar, because of many a reason. The Malabar Independent Syrian Church, otherwise known the Thoriur Church, was founded here.
Reverend Dr. Claudius Buchanan, who was the chaplain of the British East India Company, pioneered with some efforts to spread the light of the gospel through literary activities. He suffered a lot to publish the 4 Gospels in Malayalam according to the wishes of Mar Dionysius VIII. When Colonel Macaulay was the resident, he invested about 3,000 Puvarahans or about 10,500 rupees with East India Company, the interest of which was to be given to the Malankara Church. This is known as Vattipanam. This fund became the cause of the notorious Vattipana case in the Malankara Church later on. During those times, Veluthambi Dalava was the ruler in Travancore. His rivalry to the British was reflected in his relationship with the native Christians also. When Colonel Munro was the resident in Travancore, he invited the CMS or the Church Missionary Society to Malankara to make a difference in the pitiable conditions of the Malankara Church. The old seminary was founded in 1813 by the keen interest taken by Colonel Munro. The schools attached to the old seminary were also his contribution. Responding to the invitation of the resident, Reverend Benjamin Bailey, who succeeded the early CMS missionaries, concentrated his attention in the translation of the scriptures into Malayalam. Printing in Malayalam was also made possible by his sacrificial efforts. Dr. Herman Guntert, the multilinguist and Malayalam grammarian, was a missionary of the Basil Mission. Reverend Joseph Fenn concentrated in clergy training. Henry Baker paid his attention to education. Village schools were his idea. Even though the CMS missionaries did meritorious things for the Malabar Church, their interferences in certain areas were not acceptable to the newly consecrated Metropolitan Chepat Mar Dionysius. The Synod of Mavelikara in 1836, which approved the decree known as the Mavelikara Padiola, finally rejected the proposals of the missionaries to reform the church. Thus ended the 20-year-long relationship the Syrian church had with the missionaries. The old seminary and its compound and the Vattipanam came under the custody and control of the Malankara Metropolitan as per the mutual agreement. Munro Island was given to the missionaries. For those who tried to keep the torch of Reformation aflame, inspired by the missionaries, this was a time of hardships. When the mission of help was terminated, a glorious chapter in the history of the church came to an end.